How to Improvise Part 2, using the extended blues scale, or the 5 blues scales we've learnt to date. Before we try to improvise using the extended blues scale set, let's revise the first scale before we go any further to make sure you thoroughly understand that lesson and have got the basics of improvisation down. The first step towards improvising with the blues is to learn the pentatonic blues scale. To play the pentatonic blues scale in A, play the 5th fret of the bottom E string with the 1st finger, then play the 8th fret on the bottom E string with the 4th finger, then play the 5th fret of the A string with the 1st finger, the 6th fret of the A string with the 2nd finger, the 7th fret of the A string with the 3rd finger, the 5th fret of the D string with the 1st finger, the 7th fret of the D string with the 3rd finger, the 5th fret of the G string with the 1st finger, the 7th fret of the G string with the 3rd finger, the 8th fret of the G string with the 4th finger, the 5th fret of the B string with the 1st finger, the 8th fret of the B string with the 4th finger, the 5th fret of the top E string with the 1st finger, and the 8th fret of the top E string with the 4th finger. Step 2. Memorise and speed up the pentatonic scale, playing the scale upwards and back down. Step 3. Play the pentatonic blues scale with a backing so you can get used to how it should sound. The fourth and final step. Play the notes of the pentatonic blues scale out of order with the backing track. Don't be scared to use your imagination or experiment. Don't feel you have to move up and down the scale too much. You can get a good effect with just 2 or 3 notes repeated. Don't do big jumps between the notes in the scale for any length of time. This can sound quite poor. Even if you've been playing for a while and you can play quite quickly, it's a good idea to hold a note. This gives you time to think and consider your next move. summarise the 4 steps. Step 1. Learn the pentatonic blues scale, both up and down. Step 2. Speed up the scale and commit it to memory. Step 3. Try the scale with the backing tape so you can get used to how it should sound. The final step, step 4. Play the scale out of order with the backing tape, not being scared to use your imagination or experiment. Once you feel happy improvising with this first scale, you can move on and draw in the other scales. How you do this depends really on how good you are with them. If you've got them completely down by memory, then you can jump about between the scales as you wish. However, if you're not so familiar with the other scales, you can just start using one at a time and just build up your knowledge of the guitar fretboard. Obviously, the more practice you do, the better you'll become at it. To start with, however, you might find it easier to get to know 1 or 2 scales that are close to the scale you already know. Then you can add those to your repertoire and practice with those for a while before you try adding the other 2 scales. This way, you'll get to know all the scales properly, and really there's no hurry. You've got your entire life to get the guitar off properly. You shouldn't try to race it all in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And once you know all the scales, you shouldn't feel like you have to use them all the time. Obviously, this can damage your musicality. The whole point of the exercise is to improve the way you use the guitar and how it sounds. You don't want to destroy that by trying to be too technical. Just stick with what you can and what sounds good, and you'll be alright. It's worth me pointing out there's 1 or 2 very famous professional guitarists who only use 1 or 2 scales and they never shift from them, and they get away with it, so can you. Here's some backing tracks to practice your improvisation with, and I'll also post them separately so you can choose the one you want and practice with it as much as possible. And if you'd like to print out a copy of the scales so you can follow them, I'll put a link to a PDF in the description below.